Welcome to a Vote 2011 special presentation. I'm Catherine Clark. It's a perennial question in Canadian politics. How can we get more women to run for public office? Although more women than ever before are throwing their hats into the electoral ring, their numbers are nowhere near representative of Canada's population. According to the advocacy group Equal Voice, women make up 52% of Canada's population, yet only about 21% of the country's municipal councils, provincial legislatures, and the House of Commons. When it comes to women's representation, Canada is 50th place among all of the world's countries. Is there something about the nature of political life that fails to attract women in greater numbers? Is there something about the process of running for office that discriminates in favor of male candidates? Or are there other explanations that account for the gender gap in Canadian politics? We will be exploring these questions over the next 60 minutes. Later in the program, I will be joined here in studio by three women who've thought about these issues and who have first-hand experience with the political process. But first, I traveled to several different ridings during the current federal election campaign to speak to women candidates about their lives, their political motivations, and their experiences running for public office. Here are their stories.
It's not the most populated area.
Yeah.
We can get, the plan is to try to put his own house somewhere in this area, and then we can just take.
Yeah.
We can.
Does Harriet's Field in Williamswood?
Yeah, it's down.
Oh, okay.
Or is it, I can't remember.
Yeah, there's the trailer park, so there's the community center.
So it's there.
Megan, give me a sense of why you ran for politics in the first place.
That is such a big question. I believe in justice. I want to see justice realized in my community. And by justice, I mean social, economic, and environmental justice. And I think there are lots of ways of achieving that. There are lots of ways of contributing to realizing justice in your community. But one thing that we do need in that circle of everything that's happening on issues is we do need elected officials who will speak truth to power, who will be brave and bring forward good legislation. Part of what I'm doing is about working towards realizing justice in my community. And part of it is timing, too. You know, you look at where does this fit in my life? What are the things happening right now at this moment? I mean, for my own personal piece of timing, Alexa McDonough was the Member of Parliament here, and she said she wasn't going to run again. And I was at a point in my career where I thought maybe there are other ways that I can contribute to this great national project. So it had a lot to do with timing as well.
Good morning. This is Meghan Leslie. She is the Minister of Parliament in the Halifax riding, representing the New Democratic Party. She is here today to talk with us about her platform and issues relevant to us as young Canadians. Because students here will be eligible to vote, we believe this is an important venue to discuss the issues. So please welcome Meghan Leslie.
Thank you. Thank you all so much for being here. Connor, thanks for organizing this. I think this is a wonderful thing. So I know you guys are hearing from different candidates. Am I the first candidate? Yeah.
Parliament is in Ottawa. There are 308 members of Parliament. Only a couple of them are from around that area. Everybody else travels. So if you're traveling every week, every Monday to head down to Ottawa, every weekend to come home, on the weekends, what do you do? Do you spend that time with your family? Well, you have to spend time with constituents. You have to be out there having a presence in your community. And I think to be successful at that, if I can be frank, I think you need a wife. You need someone who is going to raise your children. You need someone who is going to make sure there's food in the house. You need someone who knows how to cancel the newspapers. I don't know how to do those things in my home. I am very lucky that I have a partner who fills that role for me.
And does so willingly?
But luckily he's able to do it because of what he's doing with his career right now. He's a PhD student, so he has flexibility with his hours. So he's able to say, I will work from this hour to this hour, and then I'll go grocery shopping. And so he's able to, but it's really, really hard. And actually, Alexa McDonough's here. She's the former MP from Halifax. Welcome, Alexa. And she can probably tell you, too, that the way the NDP writes its platform, it's a long and involved process. So
what was your experience when you first ran as a woman?
wow, it's so long ago now. I can hardly dig back that far.
There were no women's washrooms in the legislature when Alexa got elected.
Although it was interesting because that was the most physical thing people talked about, and the media always wanted me to tell those tales, and I was somewhat reluctant because I really had this idea that I don't want to spill whatever ink I have or what airtime I have access to whining about a washroom for myself in the legislature. Like, that is so unimportant in the total scheme of things, and this is such an old story, but I actually discovered it was quite an asset because it meant I went downstairs to the public washroom where all people, you know, school kids coming and going and tourists and service groups that were coming to see the legislature were all lined up at the washroom, and I'd get to chit-chat with them. I'd get to hear what they thought about what was going on. I'd hear about their issues, and, you know, it turned it into an asset.
A heartfelt thank you to you, to the people of Halifax, and to all of Atlantic Canada.
You hear a lot about the 3 barriers to women running. Number 1, a woman selecting herself. Number 2, the party selecting that woman to be the candidate. And then number 3, the voters selecting that woman to be the MP. And that's sort of tried and true. There's all kinds of analyses on that. But then there are the nuts and bolts of what it is to campaign. You have to raise money. You have to have someone do your laundry. You have to have all those things in place.
How do you encourage women to run?
Well, I think the answer is yes, you absolutely need to take special steps, and I'm proud to say that the New Democratic Party started doing that in the early 70s when Rosemary Brown was the first woman to seek the leadership of any political party in Canada. She ran against Ed Broadbent, who had a very solid base. With huge mobilization of feminists and activists and groups underrepresented that saw her leadership capability and swung in to support her. She didn't win, but she came a solid second after a number of long-serving, experienced members of Parliament. The party has formed that infrastructure, participation of women network, that allows women to communicate with each other more easily, come together from time to time.
When I look at my own situation, I would not have run if I hadn't been asked. Full stop. If the candidate search committee had not said, hey, have you ever thought about running? Come talk to us. I would never have run.
I was actually in a conversation with her because she was on her way to move to Ottawa. Anyway, a little bit reluctantly, am I willing to say, are you willing to say, because she loved this community and was so actively engaged in community work that she wasn't sure about going to Ottawa full-time.
I applied for a job with Alexa.
I was encouraging her to apply for this job, and then it was like a light went on. There are more options in Ottawa than serving on the staff of an elected member. Like, how about being an elected member?
And then we also
You didn't see yourself that way at that point.
No, I didn't, right? It took someone
She wasn't a shrinking violet, but she wasn't thinking of putting herself forward
I
as
think
a
a lot
candidate.
of women say that, though. A lot of women say, the first question, if they are approached, would you consider running, is, why me? And so that's one reaction, and the other one is, wow, never thought about it.
Yeah, it's not that you don't think you can't do it. Exactly.
Yeah, a lot of men just say, wow, yeah, sure, okay, that's a great idea.
Yeah.
I ran in 13 campaigns, including the 2 leadership campaigns in which I ran, and I don't really ever remember approaching a man who said, I couldn't do that. But that's the usual response of most women initially. And then you say, and this was an early tip that Rosemary Brown gave me, before you say, I could never do that job, go down and sit in the gallery of Parliament or the gallery of the legislature and seriously, assess what's going on. Don't just do it once. Do it a few times, and then you look at yourself in the mirror and say, gee, I could never do what those guys do down there. And it's worked for a lot of women. They say, oh yeah, well, now that I see the reality, I can certainly see why we need women in there, and yeah, I could do that. So there have to be special outreach measures because women don't normally just think, boy, that's what I want to do, is be a politician. Continues to be seen as a primarily man's world for all kinds of reasons that are obvious.
Is it still a man's world, Meghan, when you're there in Ottawa?
Yes. I mean, it's quite different
it's quite different from how it used to be. I mean, I've read all kinds of books with stories about Alexa and stories about Sheila Copps' experience and Deborah Gray's experience. It's very different, right? Nobody's calling me baby. I've never once been, patted on the bum or anything like that. But I am very much patted on the head. Maybe not literally, but I'm
You're like, this woman's good.
but also like, oh, aren't you cute?
You're so young.
Oh, you're young and feisty. And a lot of men in the House of Commons will come over and tell me that they think I'm doing a great job, which is wonderful feedback. And they say, one day you're going to be a real force to be reckoned with. Yeah, well, what about right now? And get your hand off my arm. So that you do get treated differently, and the number of times I've had to talk about the fact that I'm wearing pink tights, because some of the men that I work with just don't know how to talk to me. They don't know how to shoot the breeze with me, right? They can't talk about the fight or the game, so they're like, hey, Meghan, those are some fancy tights you got on. It's their way of trying to break the ice with me and chat with me, because they just don't know how to talk to a young woman who is a member of Parliament with them.
You have essentially made a career choice that politics is the path you're following for now. So here you are as a young woman. Why do it now? I mean, why was it important to you to make your contribution now?
I think it's really important to have young people in the House. I look at Nicolas Dufour from the Bloc. He was elected, I think he was 21 when he was elected. Nikki Ashton was 24 when she was elected. And people say, aren't they a little bit young? Don't you think that's just a little too young? And I think, well, I actually don't want 308 MPs who are 21, but I also don't want 308 MPs who are 65. We need to have all these points of view in the House. And I think it's really important that some young people run. But it's very hard if you're a young woman, right? Because you have that question, am I going to have kids? Am I going to settle down in quotes, and have a family? And if I do, then how am I going to manage the two? We see Helena Georges right now, and she's doing it. Sheila Copps has done it. Those are some pretty, extraordinary women and extraordinary circumstances, and I think it's a really difficult decision to make. We have a very, very friendly cat, desperate for attention. Yeah.
Oh, Megan, I'm sure that cat's going to vote for you.
I like his color.
Happy.
And when I'm trying to recruit young women to run, most of them say, I gotta wait a few years. I gotta wait until my kids are in high school, or my kids are school age, or my kids are out of the house. They're not willing to jump in when they're young.